Hi, this is Josh Kilroy with the Fair Deal Democrats, and this is the Fair Deal Democrats podcast. Thank you for joining. I hope you're having a great holiday season. I am battling just the remnants of severe cold, which is one of the reasons it's been a while since we've had a podcast. But we've started a series looking at some of the 2028 potential Democratic candidates. And today we're going to talk a little bit about former Vice President Kamala Harris and the prospects for her campaign should she choose to run. So earlier this year, she decided not to run for governor of California, a race that she would have been widely expected to win if she had chosen to run. And that's raised speculation that she is looking to run again for president in 2028. And she has recently extended her book tour for her campaign, a book about her 3.5 month campaign last year, and making the case that she did as well as could be expected, while hampered by short campaign cycle and maybe lack of cooperation from certain elements of the Democratic Party. The book is well worth reading, if only because it is much dishier than political books tend to be, particularly from people who are still active politicians, who might still have a campaign or two left in their future. But she's been raising her profile, or at least keeping her profile as high as it can reasonably be expected at this part in the cycle. We can expect her to be active for some of the Democratic candidates, particularly in maybe some of the contested Senate and House seats in 2026, building chips that she can call in if she chooses to run again for president. So let me just be upfront. Kamala Harris will never, ever be the president of the United States. I don't know why she continues to harbor this belief that this could happen. I know that the current polling suggests that she is at or near the top of frontrunners for the Democratic presidential nomination. But that's really a mirage. As somebody who has worked in politics for 20 plus years, that's just people saying, I know who she is. They don't know who Andy Bashir is, or Wes Moore, or other candidates. So while it's true that she is well known, and that is a plus, it will by no means guarantee her the nomination. And if she were to somehow happen to win the nomination, it's highly unlikely she could ever win a contested presidential race. One of the myths that she promulgates about her campaign last year is that it was handicapped by how short it was. This is flat out untrue. And again, just looking at it from the basics of a campaign, she was widely known. Her positions were widely known. She started off, the peak of her campaign came in the first couple of weeks as the party rallied to her support. It floundered as people got to know her, got to see her make decisions over the course of the campaign, choosing Tim Walz, who, while he's a pretty good governor, far from an exciting choice, and really did not do anything to sort of extend the battleground. Whereas Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer would have been a statement that we're competing more aggressively in those key battleground states. Minnesota was always a safe state, and it was a disappointing safe bet. Other mistakes that she made include choosing not to differentiate herself from any Biden policies when she had plenty of opportunity to do so. Most famously, she had the opportunity on national TV, where she was asked flat out by a reporter what she would have done differently, and candidly admitted that nothing came to mind. She could have easily said, I would have been tougher on immigration from day one, or I would have moved much more quickly to address inflation in 2022 as it first became a key priority for people. She said none of that. She did not walk back any of her positions on, for instance, some of the wedge issues, including, for instance, biological males in women's locker rooms or participating in women's sports. So she missed, as people got to know her, her campaign floundered, and which is exactly what happened, by the way, in 2020. She started off, she was considered a front runner in 2019 when she launched her campaign. And she ran a chaotic campaign, an unfocused, undisciplined campaign, and was forced to humiliatingly drop out before the first ballot had been cast. She is not a good campaigner at the national level. She was excellent. I happened to be living and working in politics in California in 2016 when she ran, and she was great. She, at her best, she can be a warm communicator. Um, and just to continue that, she had a weak opponent in 2016, but she built a strong coalition. She effectively communicated the core values. She was sort of the responsible moderate in that Senate race, while still being a full-blooded California progressive. So she is, but she is not. She none of that translated to the national stage, where the constituencies are much bigger, much more complicated, and just devising a message that can communicate to multiple constituencies and keep a coalition in line. She's never demonstrated any of that. So her pluses are that she has unmatched name recognition. Everyone in the Democratic Party knows who she is, and pretty much everyone in America knows who she is. She has the ability to fundraise with the best of them. And, going back to the campaign last year, she was not underfunded. In spite of the short time frame, she had the money needed to win. That was not a factor in why she lost. So she has a solid base of support. The part of the black professional class that's a key constituency in the Democratic Party. It stands behind her, as do many of the people in sort of the nonprofit sector that is such a crucial part of the Democratic coalition. So she has these advantages. It's funny, when I was researching for this podcast, one of the positives that came up through I tested this through Gemini, an AI model, and they came up with as a positive what they called the Nixon precedent. Whereas Nixon, who was former vice president under Eisenhower, lost to Kennedy, lost the gubernatorial race in California in 1962, and was able to rehabilitate his image and come back in 1968 as a credible candidate and a successful one, obviously, as we all know. So when you're using something like the Nixon precedent, I think that lets you know that maybe you're not building on the strongest of foundations. So her liabilities as a candidate, she's already lost. The voters have taken a measure of her twice, if you consider her campaign in 2020, which I think you should. But certainly, everyone had a chance to take her measure last year, and she came up short. So she's a proven loser. She is, tied at the hip to a very unpopular president, Joe Biden, and his most unpopular policies. Some of the COVID policies, some of the perceived inaction on inflation. Actually, his record on inflation is pretty impressive overall. He made some stumbles, but overall, he got it down quickly without a recession, which is an impressive achievement. But she's still tied with that negative, but the inflation of the early. She's tied with the chaotic and wildly unpopular asylum policy that led to 10 plus million immigrants being here in the United States without going through a legal process, or a citizenship process. Asylum is itself a legal process, but um, she has had opportunities to distance herself from those policies. She has never taken them up. It just would get harder over time for her to distance herself from those policies. Another factor in why she won't win is that the Democratic field in 2028 is actually strong. Wes Moore, whom I've already mentioned, Andy Bashir, whom I've already mentioned, Pete Buttigieg, Gretchen Whitmer if she decides to run, J.B. Pritzker if he decides to run, Gavin Newsom, who, like I said, will not become president, but he's still a candidate of some stature. So I think there will be very competent, very exciting new candidates for people to consider, possibly AOC. And the next video I do will be about her campaign possibilities. But there are exciting candidates, and people are just ready to move on from Joe Biden. The whole thing was a nightmare for many people, and the way it ended was truly a debacle of epic proportions. I, while I have some personal fondness for President Biden, and I think some of his achievements will stand out over time, he is not somebody that the Democratic Party should just move on from Joe Biden and his presidency and present vision for the United States. Another factor is that she has an unclear ideological lane. Like I said earlier, in the California Senate race, she really gathered the sort of the strong center left campaign, and pushed her other opponent off into the sort of more progressive lane, which, given how they run their top tier system, gave Kamala a very strong advantage. But she has not, coming off the Biden administration, it would be hard for her to really claim on immigration and some policies the middle ground. So there are other candidates like Bashir, for instance, who would be much better positioned to grab that ground. Josh Shapiro, who I should have mentioned earlier, governor of Pennsylvania. These are people who will be able to sort of block Kamala from where I think her natural instincts lie. Also, I need to say, and I know others have felt this as well, she tends to choke in the clutch. You know, some of her answers, like on policy questions, or her inability, again, to differentiate herself from Biden, or picking Tim Walz, um, you know, some of it just seems like she's one of these people who really needs to plan everything out. And I don't think she can make important key decisions in short order, which is an important attribute in a president, right? You have to process information quickly, often incomplete information, and still come out with strong, solid policy choices. So, for all of these reasons, I think Kamala Harris will be. She should not run. If she does run, I don't think she will win the primary. I think she will be eclipsed by some of these newer, exciting faces. And if she should happen to win the Democratic nomination, I think the Republicans, depending on who they nominate, and they've got their own work through, I think the Republicans would win. So Kamala Harris, in my opinion, will never be president of the United States. I must say, just in a sort of concluding note, I like her. Like she's roughly my age. I'm 57. She's in her mid to late 50s, and she has my favorite moments from the campaign were when she was talking about. She had stopped in a record store and was talking about some of the music she liked, and some of it was great jazz. Like I think she bought a Charles Mingus record or something, and I was like, okay. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I like this person. I think she is enormously likable. I think her authentic, loving relationship with her husband. I think people pick up on that as a positive. So, at a personal level, I think I would find a lot to like about her. if I, knew her as a person instead of as a political figure, where I do feel, again, not a great communicator, does not make great decisions in tight time frames, and really cannot move on from the past. So I hope for her sake again that she does not run for president, and I wish her great success in the rest of her life. So, thank you for joining us. Our next video will be coming up fairly quickly now. Like I said, I've been sick for the last 2 weeks or so, so I've fallen behind. I'm going to be recording several over the next few days, but I think the next one will be on AOC and her prospects for being president in 2028. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.